I am Anna Seawolf, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about personal development in the context of parenting, where I explore how you can find more calm, connection, and joy in parenting through the process of self-discovery and inner growth with a trauma-informed lens. Today on the podcast, a dynamic conversation about what it means to be confident, grow resilience, and live an intentional life with the New York Times bestselling author of 5 books, Neil Pasricha. You may know him from his blog, 1000 Awesome Things, which he began after a jolting divorce and sudden suicide of his close friend. Later, based on his blog, he wrote his first book, The Book of Awesome. Subsequently, he wrote other books, such as The Book of Even More Awesome, Awesome is Everywhere, which is a children's book, and The Happiness Equation. Neil is a highly accomplished guy. He clearly loves the word awesome and has a mysterious connection with the number 1000. If you are a book aficionado, I encourage you to check out Neil's podcast, aptly titled 3 Books, a 15-year mission to uncover the world's 1000 most formative books, 3 books at a time. It features live interviews with famous people such as David Sedaris, Malcolm Gladwell, Judy Blume, among many others. You may also enjoy his TED Talk, The 3 A's of Awesome. One of the 3 A's is authenticity. His latest book is about resilience. It's called You Are Awesome: 9 Secrets to Getting Stronger and Living an Intentional Life. It will be out in the world soon in November 2019. Read this book and go from change-resistant to change-ready, failure-prone to failure-proof, thin-skinned to thick-skinned, and anxious to awesome. And now, please enjoy this wide-ranging and lively conversation with Neil Pasricha. And remember, you are awesome. Neil, welcome to Authentic Parenting.
Thank you so much for having me, Anna.
Yes, I'm excited to talk to you about resilience and many other things in between. Your first book was about gratitude, then you wrote about happiness, now resilience. I love all the topics you talk about, and you also talk about authenticity, right? You are a perfect guest for this show.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. And by the way, you make it sound so elegant when you tell people that I wrote The Book of Awesome about gratitude, The Happiness Equation about happiness, You Are Awesome about resilience. But what you don't know, and I should tell you and tell your guests, tell your listeners, is that I had no idea I was doing that until now. It was not a plan. It was not an idea. It was more just like after writing a bunch of books, I look back and then I was like, oh, turns out they're all on the same theme of intentional living. And I didn't even notice that when I started. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yes. I really want to ask you about the 1000 Awesome Things. I think it's such a cool idea, but I also want to dig into your story, how you got started with the blog. Tell me that story.
Sure.
if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Going back. Yes.
I was in my late 20s. I'd been married a couple of years. We had bought a house together. We were talking about starting a family, and it was all what I thought I would be doing in my late 20s, buying a house, getting married to a woman, we have kids, and I have a nice job. That's what I thought life was supposed to be. That's what my parents told me I was supposed to do, right? I have an East Indian background, and listen, if you aren't married and have kids and have a house and have a job, ideally you're a doctor, then you're a failure, right?
Right, yes.
My parents never gave me that overt pressure, but the model I saw amongst my parents and all their friends was that model. And then, Anna, what happened is, in the span of a few weeks, 2 drastic changes happened in my life. First of all, my wife told me she wanted a divorce. which caught me off guard and I was in shock. And then my best friend, who I haven't mentioned yet, but my best friend Chris, he sadly committed suicide. And so in the span of a few days, I lost everything: my house, my marriage, my best friend, my social support system, because it was largely through my marriage. And I didn't have anywhere to even live. Never mind write a eulogy, never mind process my divorce, never mind. I had never seen a therapist before. I started seeing a therapist. I lost 40 pounds due to stress. Everybody at work said, "You look great," because they don't understand that actually I was just not sleeping. So during this time of my life, Anna, I started a website. And the website or the blog was called 1000awesomethings.com. The idea behind it was if I could find one thing a day to cheer myself up, then maybe slowly over time, over 1,000 days, I would put myself back into a good mood. And now this was not easy to do. And many days I wrote horrible, I wrote about crying because I cried all weekend. And I wrote about the virtues of crying. And if you read it, if you knew what I was going through, you might have noticed that they were kind of tinged with a bit of sarcasm and a sort of acerbicness. And I was a bit negative at the time. Even though the blog was purportedly positive, the write-ups were a bit cynical, a bit salty. I wrote about fat baseball players. They give us hope that we can play sports. And because it wasn't Pollyanna, it attracted, I think maybe because of that, it attracted a large following. It ended up winning the award for Best Blog in the World at the International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences 2 years in a row. I was invited to do a TED Talk at TEDx Toronto. That TED Talk went viral on TED.com. So it became something like the top 10 most inspirational TED Talks of all time. I was then, as this was all happening, publishers came to me and they wanted to turn my blog, 1000awesomethings.com, into a book called The Book of Awesome. That book came out in 2010. It hit number 1 on the bestseller list right away, international bestseller list, New York Times bestseller list. It ended up staying there for 200 weeks, selling over 1 million copies. And it was unreal. I was working at Walmart this whole time. I'm working my job. And people are saying, "Are you going to quit?" And I was like, no, it's just a 15 minutes of fame, flash in the pan. Everybody gets some, Andy Warhol quote, right? Everyone gets famous for 15 minutes in the future. So I thought it would all peter out. And I never quit my job. And whenever I was asked to do events or something or give a speech, I would say, "Oh, it has to be on the weekend," because I have a job. I was the director. I was working for the CEO of Walmart, and then I was the director of leadership development at Walmart. And I liked my job.
That's that prescriptive lifestyle, that boxed thinking that we all grow up, right? And it's hard to depart from that, even if your life was changing. It's like,
well, exactly. Right? And I said I was supposed to be a doctor and I already failed at that. So imagine I said to my parents, "Hey, I decided to quit work completely, have no salary and no benefits, and I will live the life of an artist."
Yeah.
They would have had a heart attack.
Yeah, probably.
But luckily, I kept writing. I kept blogging. I had a sequel, The Book of Even More Awesome. I had another sequel, The Book of Holiday Awesome. I did 5-page-a-day calendars of awesome. I did a journal of awesome. And it kept going. And then I'm starting to get asked to do speeches. I start doing 10 speeches a year, then 20 speeches a year, then 30 speeches a year. It starts to become too much. So eventually, Anna, I did this math. And you said you said before we started recording that you thought I was a mathy guy. Well, I did the math, and here's the math. Do you know how many hours are in a week?
No, I'm not good at math.
What's your guess?
I don't know. I have to do the math. I need a pen and paper.
No. Okay, I'll tell you. I wasn't trying to make you feel bad. It is 168 hours. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, 168 hours divided by 3 is 56. Mm. So in a given week, you, me, and all your listeners have 56 hours plus 56 hours plus 56 hours. Think of them as buckets of time. 3 buckets of time. Now, if I ask the average person, how much sleep do you want to get a night? They would say 8 hours a night. 8 hours a night times 7 days a week is an entire 56-hour bucket for sleep. Okay? Now, I say to the average person, how much do you work a day? Oh, they say, I have a 40-hour job. But you know what, Neil? I actually work at home. I have a commute. I do emails on the weekend. Oh, okay, I say, let's round it up to 56 hours. You have a full bucket for work. My point of this model, Anna, is that, and this is a model I did in my last book, The Happiness Equation.
Mhm.
My model is the two buckets: pay for, justify, and create your third bucket. And I will label that bucket fun. Okay. And if you happen to be single, then you can do anything you want in that bucket. And you can go to the gym, you can teach singing, you can write a blog. Okay. Do whatever you want. If you're married with kids, maybe you want to raise children in that bucket. But think about what you want to spend that bucket on when your kids are out of the house, is what I would tell you. And so anyway, where am I? So I decided that my work bucket of Walmart and my writing and speaking bucket was starting to get some stress. Why? Because after my divorce, a few years later, I met another woman. Her name is Leslie. We fell in love. 2 years later, I asked her to marry me. A year later, we got married. Then we had children. And guess what? When you have kids, I don't need to tell you, your life changes. And so I wanted to be home for dinner, and I wanted to be home for bedtime, and I wanted to be home for bath. And that's when I used to do all my writing. So I had to quit Walmart, move my writing and my speaking to my work bucket. And then I have a third bucket now, and it's all family.
How did you actually quit? Did you write a resignation letter? Did you go in? I mean, how did you feel? How was it? Was it the hard decision, or
extremely hard?
Yeah?
Extremely hard. Extremely hard. First, I started taking extra sabbaticals. So I started taking, instead of 3 weeks vacation, I started taking 4 weeks vacation a year, 5 weeks vacation a year, 6 weeks vacation a year. I would take them unpaid. Okay, to make more space. Audi, the car company, they invited me to go on a 16-city speaking tour with their executives across the United States, paying me some exorbitant amount of money, more than my annual salary at Walmart. And I talked to the Walmart head of HR. She said, "You can do it. You just have to take 16 days off." I said, "Oh, I don't have any more vacation." She said, "Oh, you can take an extra 16 days unpaid." So I did that. And then I took an 18-week sabbatical to test it out. And then I called the former CEO I used to work with. And by this time, he had now become the CEO of Walmart International. His name is David Cheesewright, and he's a big mentor to me. And I said, "Dave, I have a real pickle." I said, "I don't want to waste your time, but I have a pickle." And he said, "What's the pickle?" And I said, "I think I should quit. But if I stay at Walmart, I might get a promotion and I will be an executive and I will have a great job here." And he said, "Neil, you have to do 2 tests." And these 2 tests are actually in the new book, You Are Awesome. So you may have already read them. But the first test is called the deathbed test. So you have to ask yourself, which of these 2 options, staying at Walmart or writing books, would I regret not doing more on my deathbed? The deathbed test is, which of the 2 options will I regret not doing more on my deathbed? So that for me was the writing. If I don't ever write, I'll think, "Oh shoot, I should have written some more books," And then that would be more of a regret than staying at Walmart. And then the second question is the Plan B test, which means if this all fails, if you go be an artist or you go be a ballet dancer or you go pursue your craft and it fails, what is your Plan B? What is your backup plan? And if you're married and you have 3 kids and you have a huge mortgage and your partner maybe doesn't work, then your backup plan's bad. You might not have a good backup plan. But in my case, I thought to myself, very honestly, could I knock back on Walmart's door and would they hire me even at a lower level position? And they said yes. And I said, that's a safe bet. They know me. I worked there 10 years. They like me. I like them. So it was a safe bet. Now, they might not have had space for me, but then I could go knock on other doors. I felt confident that I could get some job if I failed at this one.
Wow. So hold on a second. What was holding you back to soar, to fly off and just leave Walmart? Like now that you look back, what was it? And talk to me about going back to Walmart, a Plan B. Why not think bigger that Amazon may hire me? I may be an entrepreneur. Why go to the safety net? I want to dig a little in your in your psyche a little bit.
Well, the root issue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay.
The root issue is confidence. Okay. After I quit, I convinced myself that I should have. Now I can honestly tell you today, I'm 40. I just turned 40 actually yesterday.
Oh, happy belated birthday. Congratulations.
Thank you. It feels great. And I can tell you honestly, Anna, now, I should have quit 5 years earlier. Remember the Book of Awesome? I had written 5 books before I quit Walmart. 2010, 11, 12,
Yeah.
14. I hadn't quit yet. I had given 200 speeches on the side. Anyway, but here's the thing, confidence. I grew up East Indian, in a suburb of Toronto that was very white. Okay? So I had nobody looked like me. I was very small and skinny as a child. So I was also smaller than everyone else. And that meant when we competed in gym class or recess in sports, I was the worst. I was the worst player. I was very small and I was not very good at shooting a basketball or anything. So what did I do? Well, as a defense mechanism, I developed a very sharp sense of humor. And I read books all night when I got home. And I got glasses, thick Coke bottle glasses, when I was 7 years old. And there was no internet. So when my family would go to bed at 8 p.m., I would stay up reading till midnight every night. I read probably a book a night, and I went to the library every Saturday with my mom and my sister. I developed a very, very deep love of books, of reading, and I used that intelligence, gleaned entirely from books, The Babysitter's Club, Encyclopedia Brown, Judy Blume, Beverly Cleary, Hardy Boys. I used that knowledge, I think, looking back, to become funny. Honestly, my sense of humor was my best quality, and it is what attracted my friends to me and what helped me be not popular, but friends with the popular kids. However, that low confidence stuck inside me. And so I think that's partly why I went to Harvard. I didn't go to Harvard because I thought it was the best education, although it was very, very good. And many schools are very good. I went there because I needed more confidence. And I thought, if I go to Harvard, I'll have this on my resume. I'll have this as a networking opportunity. I'll have this as a piece of a diploma nobody can take away from me, or a degree nobody can take away from me. And I did it. And now today, if you ask me, Neil, you're 40, what would you do differently? I would say, honestly, and am I allowed to swear on the show or not?
We can bleep it, but usually no.
Okay,
we are a family-friendly show.
We are a family-friendly show, so I wasn't going to swear. I was just asking hypothetically. I'd say, you know what, Neil? If you could go back and do it after high school, age 18, do what you're doing right now. And I'm 40, and I started doing this full time when I was 35, 36. And I worked at Walmart for 10 years after I graduated from Harvard Business School, age 25, 26 to 35, 36. Okay. I love Walmart, and I had great mentorship there and great friends, and I still have friends there. But if I could do what I'm doing now for longer, I'm in flow. I love what I do now.
Yes, definitely. You're living your authentic life. Yeah.
I'm drinking a box of water right now called Flow. Just maybe that's why I said the word flow.
Yes, I know.
It's not a branding campaign. I don't get paid by them.
Well, they should pay me for putting this episode on air. I want to know I know a lot about Indian culture. I have close friends, so I'm very familiar. How about your parents and their acceptance, their approval when you completely left Walmart and started this whole adventure? Basically, your own thing. I want to know what they said, how you broke the news to them. What was it like?
Yeah, my parents. So my mom left East Africa during the Idi Amin crisis. Even though she was from Kenya, not Uganda, there was a lot of stress on Asian people in that time. At the same time, her dad. So for those that don't know, Idi Amin was a dictator in East Africa in the kind of late 60s, early 70s timeframe. So he kicked all the Asians or Indian people out of the country. Okay, so it was quite a scary time there. Of Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, these countries were affected. And she was from a very wealthy family. But the thing is, my mom's family lost all their wealth in the India-Pakistan partition. So they had all their wealth in the form of jewelry and real estate, and that was all gone. It wasn't like numbers on a online banking screen like we have today. And so my mom's family became very poor. My mom was the youngest of 8 kids, and she got an education by virtue of a scholarship, but she fled to England and had to start a new life without her father, who passed away, who she was very close to. My father was very poor. He grew up in northern India, one of 5 children, whose mother passed away at age 3. So he scrapped and saved, and he somehow got his master's in nuclear physics in 1966, which, by the way, was his ticket to Canada. Canada wanted to start teaching physics in high school, and they needed to import teachers to help them do it. My dad went back to England one summer, was introduced to a woman, and 2 weeks later got married to her. The second time they met was their wedding, and that was my mom. It was essentially an arranged marriage. I mentioned the wealth side of it because normally, by virtue of the caste system, although it's not formal in my mom's culture, you wouldn't marry a guy like my dad. My dad was from a poor family. My mom was from a wealthy family. However, the goal of having her married as the youngest of 8, having her just get married and go somewhere, was so strong that they then came to Canada in 1966, and my mom especially landed with a thud in a city an hour east of Toronto with no Indian people around. She was vegetarian. There was no vegetarian food, so she had to start eating meat. She wore Indian clothes sometimes. No one did. So she had to, she had to immerse herself very quickly. Why am I telling you this story? A, because you asked. B, because, and no one asks, by the way. I appreciate you asking. I love my parents, and they did all the hard work. I really feel that way. But B, I'm telling you this story because it helps inform the fact of what I'm going to tell you is they just always believed in me. They gave me endless confidence and fulfillment. They wanted me to be very confident. Every time I've made a decision, they have supported it. I have the luckiest set of parents a guy could ask for. They are not conservative. They're very liberal in their beliefs. Hey, listen, if I said I was gay or if I said I'm getting a tattoo on my face, I mean, they might have some hesitation, but, and I'm not judging them because from their culture, it was, they didn't know homosexuality and the types of things that are just so accepted today and should be. My parents have had to learn to accept those things because in their cultural upbringing, it was not a common thing. And I don't mean to just use homosexuality as an example. I could say the same thing about not going to university, not getting a job, just some basic things they fundamentally believe it's important to save money. There's another one, save money. If they saw me living some sort of flamboyant lifestyle, they might say, excuse me, Neil, you might want to stop dropping so much money on clothes and actually get a retirement plan. So they are pure and honest and good-hearted souls who I love dearly, and I could not be doing anything I'm doing because if I didn't have that love, that love I got from my parents, that unlimited love, is why I'm able to, as you said, soar now.
Wow. How interesting. I watched your TED Talk, of course, and your parents were in the front row and you acknowledged them. That was very sweet moment. And you do speak of them in your books and a lot of your storytelling. I enjoy your books because of that, the little anecdotes and essay-like writing. You write about your parents quite a lot, the lessons that you learned from them.
The first chapter of You Are Awesome is all about my mom, and I know you've read it. The last chapter, which I know you have not read yet.
I read it. Actually,
you did? You told me you were halfway through, I thought.
I'm a weird person. I read the last chapter first, and then yes, so I'm not a typical person.
Why do you do that? I'm so interested. I do that too sometimes, but why do we do that? Why do we do that?
I don't know. I'm just a weird person, maybe.
No, don't judge. In that, I hear some self-judgment. But I think
no. Weird is the new awesome. My daughter says.
Yes, there you go.
My daughter says, "Mom, you're weird, but you know what, Mom? That's awesome." And your book and your whole brand is all about awesome. So hey.
Yeah, I wrote the book of awesome. You can write the book of weird.
No, I'm gonna write about authenticity. Shh. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, so that's the name of it. You got that. You're cornering the market already.
Yes, it's trademark. People do not take it. Tell me about resilience, because I am interested very much in resilience. I had a difficult life, tragic, traumatic. People know, my listeners. I'm not going to reiterate. But
I know you shared with the earthquake.
I want to know. I've been always interested, and I work with a lot of traumatized people. Addicts and criminals. So I'm interested in the topic of resilience. How come some people recover and bounce back and some don't? What goes into that? And what made you become interested in resilience? And we can talk about some of the science hacks and I love the word hack. So we can talk about how we can hack our life perhaps to become more resilient and live an intentional life.
Well, thank you. I think you are resilient. I think you are resilient because of the trauma you have experienced and because of the work and the growth you have done to navigate forward from that. And I believe, and I hope you will agree, that these traumas form crucible moments where our bodies and our minds are forced to either give up or to grow. And when you grow through the traumas you've experienced, and mine, I don't compare, but mine was a divorce and the loss of my friend through suicide, and so those experiences are what channeled me to develop thicker skin. And I believe that in the world today, we have thinner skin than we have ever had. I believe in the world today, we are so fragile. We believe that when we post a photo on Instagram and only 2 people like it, we are ugly. We believe today that because of cell phones, I believe in large part, social media, definitely in large part, and the lack of true base societal challenge, i.e. famine, war, economic depression, access to clean water, we have it pretty good. Right now in the world today, we live in the most abundant time ever. We have clean waters in our taps. You can marry who you like. You aren't going to be persecuted if you are gay. You aren't going to be persecuted if you are Muslim or you are Black. You aren't going to be a slave, largely. You aren't going to be shipped to war, largely. And I'm using these are largely because, of course, people listening, depending where they are in the world, might say, "Oh, that's not my reality." You don't know what it's like here where I live. And I agree. I'm talking about where I live, which is North America, and I can only speak to my own viewpoint. But my viewpoint is that most of the people in my life are extremely, extremely lucky beyond anything we've ever been before. And so in this extremely lucky and soft culture where we get to enjoy endless fruits of our labors, think about the world you have on your pocket and your cell phone. Think about the food you have access to in the grocery store from all over the world. Think about it. We live in an era of true abundance. You can fly anywhere you want. You and me could go right now. We could decide, and tomorrow we would be in Mongolia at a 5-star hotel sipping Mai Tais, you and me together. We can decide that right now. Now, we might not have the money, but we can decide and we can do it. That's how amazing the world is. And so here's the thing. Because of that, we no longer have the tools to handle failure or even perceived failure. We have turned into an army of porcelain dolls. These days, when we fall over or trip on the sidewalk, you know what? We used to get back up. Now we just lie there crying. And you asked me, how did you get interested in resilience? I did not get interested in resilience. Resilience got interested in me. After my speeches, typically about happiness, and I'm a motivational speaker. I talk to people about the science of positive psychology, and I explain how they can implement some of the hacks or tactics in their own lives. So people walk away from my speech, they have, I can do this gratitude practice at dinner, or I can do, you know what I mean? I give them tools, right? And so after my speeches, I started getting these questions. And you know what the questions were? Here, I'll give you an example. Like a balding man in glasses in his late 50s, like a successful executive guy in a suit. He would run up to me after my speech. I get off stage, everyone claps. You know how people run to the front if they have a question?
Yes.
He would say to me, "Oh my gosh, Neil, what do I do? What do I do?" And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "My son. Help my son. I'm worried about my son. What's wrong with him? He was the high school captain of the football team. He was the high school valedictorian." I said, "Yes." He said, "He went to Duke University." I said, "Congratulations." He said, "He graduated." I said, "Congratulations." He said, his first day on the job, his boss sent him a note that he thought was rude. I said, "Okay." He said, he stayed home crying. He could not go back to work the next day.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I said, "Oh my gosh." He said, he calls me crying every night. He's so stressed. He is so anxious. He is so low resilience. We have raised a generation of people through participation ribbons.
I know.
Everybody wins. We have raised a generation of wusses. And I include myself in that camp. But when I say wusses, please know I'm not saying that judgmentally. I am not saying that with any negativity. I'm saying we have thin skin. That's why I wrote this book. I said this book will move you from thin skin to thick skin, from failure prone to failure proof, from fragile to anti-fragile, from anxious to awesome. That's my goal with this book. Give you the lessons that you can use to thicken yourself up, because the world is going to keep slapping you. The whole design of social media is to tell you suck. So you keep going online and finding out how great you are. The whole point of any ad telling you to buy deodorant is to tell you that you stink. The whole point of any billboard is to tell you that you are ugly. The world is going to punch you down. And if you aren't thick-skinned, you're going to lie there on the ground.
Yes, I mean, there are so many angles we can take this conversation to, the smartphones, the social media, then the parenting. You know, I'm raising a child as you are. You're raising 3 boys. Your children are a lot younger, but I get this question a lot. How do we raise children who don't crumble in the face of small adversity or frustration? I mean, in the era of you can get something with a click, I tell my daughter, no, we got to wait for such and such. She's like, why? You can just order from Amazon, Mom. Why do we have to wait? How not to raise entitled kids who can tolerate frustration. But life is so, like you said, abundant and easy sometimes.
Yeah. You know what the Amazon thing makes me think of, Anna?
Yes.
They say that these days, children or kids, and I would even put myself in this camp, even though I'm 40, I'm the same. We no longer feel the friction of spending money.
Yes.
And that's designed. There's actually a famous research study done. It's called, you know how the old slogan for the credit card used to be, don't leave home without it? Well, the research study is called do leave home without it. Because they found out that credit cards reduce the frictional pain you feel when you spend money, and actually tapping your credit card reduces it even further, and using your iPhone to use Apple Pay reduces it even further. So actually, if you no longer feel the friction of spending money, you no longer know how to kind of collect money and save money, because you have been taught that it's okay to just spend it till you're empty, because you don't know how to stop. Our brains are programmed for stopping mechanisms, and we've had 200,000 years of evolutionary history looking for enough berries in the forest till we're full. And now with the endless scrolling of Instagram, the endless hashtags on Twitter, the autoplay Netflix, the autoplay YouTube, and the frictionless transactions, our brains are in severe pain because we are no longer taught how to stop. You know how we used to read a newspaper? We'd read it till it was finished. Then there's no more news. Now it's 24/7. This world is going to punch us, I'm telling you, and it is punching me. And I wrote this book as a shield for myself.
Yeah, unless you become disciplined, like I set a lot of parameters around social media and technology use for my own sanity. And it takes a lot of discipline to protect myself, not to compare myself, and not to fall into that trap. So I have a lot of rules in place, and I follow. And I think
like what? What are some of the rules?
Well, I can give you specifically. I don't have email on my phone. It's been several years. So if you email me, I have to only be at my desktop to read and respond to you. And I will do that within one day.
I love that.
I do not have email on my phone.
What else? I'm taking notes.
I do not have Facebook on my phone. The only social media I use is Instagram that is on my phone. And I don't scroll endlessly. If I'm not posting, I'm not looking at people's things. So I'm a very mean social media user. So I have only 2 social media accounts, Facebook and Instagram. I hate Facebook with all my heart. And if I am on Facebook, I never check my newsfeed. I go into my Facebook group, post or comment, and support someone, and I exit. I have no desire to linger. I'm not interested in anything else. I don't post personal stuff on social media. Only on Instagram, I post personal stuff. It's kind of fun. My creative side shows up. I post pictures of beautiful things and stuff like that. That's the only social media platform I use. What else? I turn off my phone every day at 7 p.m. So if you text me, if you call me, I am not seeing, I'm not available. I never
Beautiful.
charge my
So
phone.
you have a relaxing evening. You have a bedtime routine. You have a deep sleep.
If I go out with friends or family, I don't bring my phone. I go for walks without my phone. My phone is not attached to me. And I'm not, I mean, I guess I'm a different generation. I'm 45 and I'm not so into it. But I have several rules. Like I have 7 rules. And I want to live my life like that. And my daughter sees that. And I'm hoping to inspire her. She doesn't have a cell phone. She's 11, but that helps me to. I never read or watch the news. I am oblivious to the news.
You and me are so similar. I don't read the news either. I have no social media apps on my phone. My phone's in black and white. I have an empty iPhone tray, which means there's no apps at the bottom. I'm the exact same as you. I actually have written many pieces about the dangers of cell phone addiction, and I'm taking notes because you have some that I have never heard of. The biggest one I always tell people is buy an alarm clock. The number one problem people leave beside their bed is because they say, "Oh, it's my alarm clock." Buy an alarm clock. You remember I said I worked at Walmart? They're $10.
Yes.
There's an executive at a company now. He's famous for handing his employees alarm clocks.
Yeah, my phone is always in the kitchen. Our phones, my husband's and mine, they charge in the kitchen. Nobody takes it to their bedrooms. If I am out for dinner, I will never look at my phone. Trust me, I never miss anything. And the biggest one, I don't have any notifications on my phone.
Wow, that's a good one.
When you text me, I will not know unless I go into my phone. Texting, no notification.
You have no texting.
I do have texting, but I don't have notification like ping, 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 ping.
Yeah. If no sound either.
If you text me now, I will not see that you texted me until the next time I pick up my phone to either take a picture or make a phone call or something like that. Then I go into my texts.
What do you think about I have a friend, he runs the largest YouTube channel in the world on entrepreneurship. So he's very tech savvy and he's very media oriented, and he has 2 million subscribers on his YouTube channel. His name is Evan Carmichael, and he's a nice guy. Why do I mention him? He has no cell phone. He has no cell phone at all.
I could do that. I raise my hand. I could totally do that. I honestly could do that with no regret whatsoever.
I could not do that.
I could do that. And I would.
I sit on an airplane tarmac for 2 hours sometimes before a flight. I need to be working on stuff.
I missed an opportunity a week ago. I was invited to be a guest on a TV show. Because I don't have email on my phone, because I don't have access to all this stuff, they contacted me via 7 channels. And I got to their message the day after, and they were inviting me that day when I just learned that they were inviting me to a TV show. And I said, oh, well, whatever. I'm not regretful. I don't want to live like bing, bing, boom, boom, constantly alarming me. So
this stuff is all working to lower our resilience. And the book I've written is all about how to increase our resilience. That's the skill I believe that people need now more than ever.
Yes. So tell me, there are 9 secrets to getting stronger and living an intentional life. Which 3 are your top favorites?
Okay. It's like asking people to choose their babies.
I know. I mean, I have to be like choosy and selective. I can't, we already talked about a little bit, get untouchable, right? That's one of them, the whole social media.
Well, another one is this idea of, it's secret number 3 in the book, and it's called See It as a Step. And in this chapter of the book, I actually write for really the first time about my marriage and my divorce and what that felt like. And then I share, of course, how I met somebody new. And interspersed with that essay, as you called it, are these little research studies. And the most fascinating research study of all comes from Science magazine, and it's called The End of History Illusion. And the research study was done by Dan Gilbert and a team of researchers. Dan Gilbert is a very famous Harvard psychologist, and he wrote the book Stumbling on Happiness. They interviewed 19,000 people, and they asked them, hey, how's the last 10 years of your life been? And every single one of these 19,000 people, no matter how old they were, said, oh my gosh, it's been tumultuous. It has been up and down. I moved, I got a new job, I got married, I got divorced. And then they said, okay, what do you think the next 10 years of your life would be? And for everyone's brain, the end of history illusion kicked in. We believe that today is the end of our personal history. So they say, oh, well, I'll probably be living in the same house. Oh, I'm sure I'll still be happily married to Rick. Oh, they say, my happy, healthy kids will probably still be happy, healthy. Oh, I'm a director at this company. Maybe I'll be a vice president. But of course, as you and I both know, all of those things are wrong. We change just as much in the next 10 years as we did in the past 10 years, over and over again, every decade of our life. However, when we are in the crux of a failure, whether that's a divorce, in my case, or whatever it is for you, we perceive that as the actual end of our history. Meaning, what the stories I was telling myself were, I'll be single forever. I'll never get married. I'll never have children. Nobody will love me. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
These are all fake truths, but because the end of history illusion and this neuroscience research has shown us, our brains have this habitual tendency to feel like it's over. So why do I point that out? Because the chapter that I wanted to focus on, secret number 3, is called See It as a Step. And the mental model I give people in the book is, imagine your life is a staircase. However, unfortunately, you're always on the top step. And unfortunately, you can only see the steps behind you. As you keep going through your future, you cannot see, you lift your foot up, you move up, let's call it 1 year. Every year you live, you can't see the next step. You know it's going to appear. Or you hope it does, otherwise you're dead. But you hope it's going to appear, and when it does, you put your foot on it. The thing is, we can't see forward, we can only see back. And so I use this idea of see it as a step throughout this chapter, and I use a few other examples. One example I'll give you, because it's related to relationships, which I know are generally the precursor to children, is this amazing study from the Telegraph called I call it this, Have You Had Enough One-Night Stands? They interview people who are in successful, happy, loving, long-term relationships, and they say, hey, what led you to this? And they averaged it out. Turns out the average person has like 10 one-night stands, 5 relationships, 3, they were cheated on once, they cheated on someone else once. Like, it's a horrible list of things. Nobody would want to go through that.
I read that yesterday.
Yeah,
yes.
Nobody would want to go through this. However, it is the steps that are on average you take to develop a long-term relationship. So my question is, can you see it as a step? Can you see being cheated on or being dumped or getting fired? Can you possibly shift it in your brain so it is a step towards a future you cannot picture, but is definitely coming?
Yes, instead of catastrophizing and focusing on the negative, which we tend to do.
Well, it's a simple thing in our brain. Our brains confuse the improbability of change with we confuse 2 things: the probability of change with the picturability of change. Meaning, when you get fired, you think, I'll never find another job, but that just means you can't picture finding another job. The chance of you being unemployed for 30 years looking for a job is very, 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 very low. But you say, I'll never find a job. So we confuse the probability of change with the picturability of change.
Yes, that's true. So how do you raise your boys, knowing all of this research? And I love your ability to recite research. I'm very, I admire that. I know another person who does that. It's pretty fascinating to me. Like, I read a lot of research, but I don't remember by heart, and I can't quote all of those things. So I admire that nerdiness in you.
Do you want to know how I do it?
How?
Okay. When I decided, so after the Book of Awesome got really popular, and on the Today Show, Meredith Vieira asked me, how do you make the whole world happy? And I didn't have a good answer. I decided to do my homework. And I went to the library and I looked up all studies that had been done on positive psychology. There were 300 studies or so. I printed them all out. I read them all. I highlighted them all. I read them all. And then I distilled all of them to a cue card. The front of the cue card was either the name of the study or a way to remember the study, and the back was the write-up or the summary of the study. I carried around with me the 300 studies in the form of 300 cue cards, and like a child learning words or apples or whatever on a flashcard, I flashcarded myself so I could be, and I thought to myself, if I'm going to write books about happiness, and I have, my last book is called The Happiness Equation, if I'm going to do that, then I better know all the studies that have been done on happiness. So I did all that, and then I subscribed to Google alerts called new positive psychology study, science, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, so that when any new study is published, I read that too.
Oh, I see. I see. That's a good hack. You are a natural hacker. Thank you for that. I'm gonna actually apply that into my research about authenticity.
The only thing I would say about it, Anna, is reading all those studies was a horrible experience.
How so?
It was boring.
I would think so. Yes.
Have you read my books? My books are like me. Like my books have a lot of exclamation marks in them and pictures.
No,
you know what I mean?
your books are very captivating, easy to read, story based.
Because I have a very small attention span, and I'm a jumpy, distractible dude. So my books are like literally for me. You know, that's why some of the chapters in my books are like 1 page long. And on one hand, I'm embarrassed about it because I wish, I interviewed Malcolm Gladwell for my podcast, 3 books, and like his chapters, like he can carry a thought for like 40 pages. And I talked to him about that, and he says, well, Michael Lewis can carry a thought for like 200 pages, and I can't do that. So you see, everybody has people they look up to.
Yes. No, we have to be happy with who we are. We don't want to compare. You said, I think it was in this book, let go of comparing myself to Tim Ferriss. Wasn't it in this book? One of them.
You were the first interviewer to ask me about that.
Okay. Talk to me about this Tim Ferriss guy. I listen to Tim Ferriss. How do you feel? Are you intimidated by Tim Ferriss? Do you admire him? Do you want to be like him? I think you're bigger and better than him.
Well, here's the thing. These days with social media and quantification of success being so visible, back in the 80s and 90s, if somebody had a lot more money than you or a lot more friends than you or a lot more resources than you in some way, you would never know about that unless they told you. Because if they were humble, they could be the richest person in the world. You would never know that. These days, even though Tim Ferriss, I'm sure, and I don't know him, even though I'm sure he's extremely humble, and he sounds very humble to me, I do know he has, whatever it is, a million followers on Twitter, and I have 30,000 or whatever. Like I don't know the numbers off by heart, but my point is like it's an order of magnitude higher. When I kind of did that tongue in cheek in the book, I said I will stop comparing myself to Tim Ferriss. I really was looking for a laugh, but there is some truth in that. And the truth is that when I compare myself to other people, I only look at the people bigger than me. Okay, in whatever metric I'm looking at. Like if I'm on the bestseller list and I'm number 2, well, I'm only looking at the book that's number 1. And the first week my book came out, The Book of Awesome, it actually was number 2. Number 1 was a book on Oprah. And then the next week I was number 1. Well, all I cared about that second week was what was the first book. So you see, this is a problem. Now, Tim Ferriss, who has 1 million followers, I guarantee you, if he has the same brain tendency I do, and by the way, I think we all have this tendency, yes. That's a part of our evolutionary history, then he's only looking at the people with 5 million or 10 million followers. And if you carry this all the way out to the finish line, even Oprah, let's say she has 100 million followers, late at night, when she's in a low resilience state, maybe he didn't have enough to eat, and maybe got into a fight with her sister or something, she looks at Justin Bieber with 200 million and she says, shit.
But see, to me, that's ridiculous. Like, why would we talk about, my daughter asks me, because she's this generation, this digital generation, she's like, Mommy, how many followers do you have on Instagram? I'm like, who cares? Like, I don't care about my followers or likes. There's nothing to it.
Well,
like,
can I challenge you?
Yeah.
Then why are you publishing this podcast? Why not you just have these conversations and then not publish them?
The podcast is a different story. The podcast I care about, it's meaningful, it enriches my life, it changed my life. It's a selfish act to put out this podcast out there.
Do you care how many people listen to it?
No, I care who listens. Whoever listens, it's for them. I don't care if I have millions, 10 millions, or when I had 150 listeners many, many years ago when I started. That's great.
Well, 150 is great, but the thing is, are you happy with what you have? And
I am perfectly happy.
So can you teach me how to do that, please?
Because there is meaning to it. Whoever listens, whoever contacts me or connects with me via this podcast, I do it for my own pleasure and my own learning, and so many reasons I do the podcast for. I'm not going to go into that, but I'm not looking to increase the numbers.
Yeah.
I'm not doing for that. That's just a silly thing to me. The people who listen, they are my tribe. They are my people. They connect and contact, and that gives me fulfillment. I can't even imagine like worrying about the numbers. People always ask me, how many downloads do you have per episode? I'm like, I haven't looked like in so many months. They're like, really? I'm like, because it doesn't matter to me.
So I'm the same as you logically. Like, I wrote a chapter in the happiness equation.
Yes.
All about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivations. And I showed that the thesis of the chapter is called Do It For You. And I wrote a piece for Harvard Business Review all about this. And I showed how I got addicted to my own stats, my blog stats, my bestseller list stats, whatever. I got addicted to it. And then I showed that the work I had to do to get off of it. But some of the work I do, Anna, and this is maybe where I'm different than you, is I systemize it. So my stats on my podcast, I would be very obsessed if people said, oh, Neil, you got this podcast, 3 books. I heard you have an interview with Malcolm Gladwell, so I want to listen to it. How many downloads do you get on that? You know what? I would be obsessed with that. So you know what I do?
Yes.
I give my assistant the password to the stats page, and I tell her, never tell me the password.
Mm-hmm.
So I lock it. Now, once in a blue moon, if I need the stat for some reason, I can ask her. She can look it up. But because I've systemized it out of my life, she goes on vacation, I can never see this. Like, literally, I can never see it. Because I don't have the password. So I know intrinsic beats extrinsic. I know how you feel about yourself beats how others feel about you. I know that logically. However, emotionally, occasionally I can butt up against my own internal dialogue, which says, you're not good enough. You're not worthy unless you have as many followers as Tim Ferriss. And I used him as a joke in the book. When the point
Yes. Of course. No, I understand that. And I can also say, maybe if I was younger, I think, welcome to 40s, I'm 45. I think after 40, a switch went on and I became more in tune with myself. I embraced this whole notion of authenticity, not caring what other people think, or I've always been like that. But I think after 40, something changed majorly. Like the confidence got boosted and a lot of things shifted for me personally. And I talked to other women. I'm not sure about men. I would love to know if there is data on this, but that shifted in me significantly,
Well, I remember getting interviewed by the Globe and Mail, which is the largest national newspaper in Canada. Mm-hmm. They did a profile on me after my first book. And at the time, I was much more. So if you can hear in my voice any sort of, frenetic energy, any anxiety, whatever, dial that up from now to 10. Because that's what I was like 10 years ago. Okay. I was sleeping 4 hours a night for years, 4 hours a night. Okay. And I had no coffee, no tea, nothing. I just was naturally hyper. That was my state. Okay. So the woman says to me in the interview, how are you taking all this? Do you accept yourself? Do you feel happy? And I said, no, not at all. And I said, do you? And she was like in her 50s. She said, oh, yeah. She says, I'm in my 50s. You're in your 20s. Trust. She's like, trust me, it gets better. You will accept yourself when you're my age. And you know what? I do now. I'm really proud to tell you that. That's been probably my biggest form of self-growth.
Yes. So let me ask you something about confidence. That's how we began our conversation. It also ties to resilience. Tell me where confidence comes from. How can we build it from outside? Is it from within? Does parenting have to do with it? How do you instill confidence in your kids? Is it truly like people, even researchers studied and said it's we're born with confidence, like it's genetic and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. What are your thoughts about confidence? Do you consider yourself a confident person? Yes. And how so? Did it change, or you're still the same person underneath, even though you've achieved and accumulated all of this around your name?
So I grew up being very low confidence, and now I think I am very high confidence. And the thing I have to be careful of now is anything kind of on the line of arrogance. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's how I do it, and here's what I think the model is for everybody listening. Think of a 2x2 matrix. So take a square and cut it into 4 pieces. Now you have 4 small squares. I call that a 2x2 matrix. Whatever. That's what they call it in business school. Now one side says opinion of yourself. It could go from low to high. The other side says opinion of others. And it can also go low to high. Now, if your opinion of yourself is low and your opinion of others is low, I would fill that box in with one word, and that word would be cynical. That is a cynical outlook. Okay. Now, if your opinion of yourself is high, but your opinion of others is low, the word I would use to fill the box in is arrogant. Okay. That's the top left corner. Okay. In my map. Now, the bottom right corner is, this is most common, by the way, the bottom right. Your opinion of others is high, but your opinion of yourself is low. The word here is insecure. Okay, and I think all of us suffer from this at some degree. Okay, but the work is trying to lower that amount, and also some of us suffer from arrogance in some degree on some things sometimes. But the work is reducing that amount. And the place you want to spend the most time in, and the place I think I can tell you today, I think I spend hopefully most of my time in now, is the top right quadrant, which is high opinion of self, high opinion of others, and together that forms what I call confidence. Confidence is the manifestation of you thinking you're awesome, and you also knowing that the woman sitting beside you on the bus with 3 kids who you're comforting. And I took a guy to buy groceries at a homeless man. I took a guy, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I took a homeless man to the grocery store last night to buy him a week's worth of groceries. And honestly, I didn't do that because I didn't think I was going to tell anyone about that, but I did it because we had a nice conversation on the street. I ended up discovering he was homeless. He was asking me for a bit of money, and I thought, let me do something better. And when we were shopping in the grocery store, I said to him, me and you were the same. And he said, I know that. We are the same. I said, our positions could be flipped any day, and I hope if I'm on the street looking for money, someone will buy me groceries.
Wow. I'm surprised he went grocery shopping. Normally, people who are homeless, they reject that kind of stuff.
Well, you should have seen him at the self-checkouts. He had never seen self-checkouts before, and it was like blowing his mind.
Wow.
I think because I got some trust, we developed some trust. And then I said, because I don't give homeless people money, but if they need food, I often buy them food.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Neil, I can talk to you probably for hours. There's so many interesting subjects and topics and statistics and research. We can just talk forever. And no wonder you write books quite frequently, put out there. So thank you. I want to thank you for your time and your presence. And maybe we should conclude on a question. What inspires you in life these days?
This morning, I was dancing in my robe to the Lion King, holding my baby up in the sky on top of a couch, singing, the song, Ha, Makenya. My 5-year-old was laughing like crazy because he just recently saw the Lion King, the play, so he's obsessed with the soundtrack. And my 3-year-old stumbled downstairs because the music woke him up. And honestly, what I thought in that moment was, this is life. This is life. Tiny toes on my chest, loved ones laughing, moments of bliss and therapy, and the best things in life being really totally free. You asked what inspires me. Well, trying to live in a sphere and a bubble where I'm surrounded by and I am injecting love into the people around me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for this episode of the Authentic Parenting Podcast. What do you think? What is your number one key takeaway from this episode? Let's continue the conversation in our private Facebook community. If you're in it, then that's great. If you're not, you have an invitation. Go to my website, authenticparenting.com, where you can also find the show notes, contact info, and other resources, and click on the yellow button to join our community. Authentic Parenting Community is a positive and supportive space for conscious parents just like you. In one of our recent hot discussions, we talked about quick resets when we're feeling overwhelmed. That post got a lot of engagement, and there are many fantastic ideas that will help you when you get reactive and overwhelmed. I decided to work with one of our awesome community members, Laura Mattison, who is an artist and illustrator who was also at the Authentic Parenting Conference, to create a graphic or a PDF, some sort, and compile all the amazing suggestions from our community members. Soon it will be ready to share. I can't wait. As you know, the 200th episode of the podcast is coming literally in 2 weeks, and I am super excited. We will be celebrating, and we are going to have a meetup. If you live in the greater New York area, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, you're welcome to join us. We don't have a date yet or a location or any other details. We are in the discussion planning phase. Get in touch if you'd like to join. You'll get to meet me in person and other amazing listeners of the podcast. And as always, connect to the present moment, to yourself and your children. Until next week, I am Anna Seewald. Thank you so much for listening.